Welcome to the Dr. Bros, where we have an honest discussion around vet life in and out of the clinic. My name is Jeff, and I'm your doc of the day and your guide through this episode. I am a residency trained in dermatology associate veterinarian living in Louisville, Kentucky, and I'm here with my closest friends from vet school.
Hey, I'm Brandon. I'm a small animal internal medicine resident at Iowa State University.
Hey, this is Chris. I'm a small animal GP in North Carolina.
And this is Adam. I'm a relief veterinarian in Louisville, Kentucky.
And I am so excited, this is Jeff again, so excited to introduce Dr. Andrea Hernández-Burés. She is a DVM that was born and raised on the island of Puerto Rico. She completed her bachelor's degree at the University of Puerto Rico, Mayagüez campus, and graduated from Tuskegee University College of Veterinary Medicine in 2017. Following graduation, she completed a small animal medicine and surgery rotating internship in Southwest Florida, and then worked in GP for a year as a part-time associate veterinarian while doing research with the dermatology service at UF. She then completed a specialty internship in dermatology at the University of Illinois, then moved to California to complete a dermatology residency at the Animal Dermatology Clinic of Tustin, which makes her my resident mate because we both finished our residencies at the same time. And she was also my roommate in vet school. So welcome, Dr. Andrea Hernández.
Thank you. Love that introduction. I'm very happy to be here. So
pumped to have you. You easily my prettiest vet school roommate. Sorry, Adam.
Whoa, hey.
You abandoned me.
Sorry, I got married. So
I was sorry too. And then Andrea moved into our house, but I feel like she adopted me, and her cat adopted me, and she fed me, and we've been just doing our best out here trying to finish our specialty. So on this episode, we're going to start off with a fun opening game, and then we're going to get into a little bit of Andrea's background. So this game is new, and I made it up. It's called Snoot or Boot. So I'm going to toss out some topics and things, and we'll just go around in our virtual circle and let me know what you guys think is a snoot, meaning you approve of it, or a boot, meaning you dislike it. Get that out of here. And you don't have to explain yourself, but a brief explanation is allowed. Do we all understand the rules?
I just don't know what a snoot is.
Snoot like a dog snoot, like a nose, like a snoot.
Oh, okay.
Can't help a dog reference.
Okay, got it.
Animal podcast.
I don't like it. I want to boot the snoot.
Well, that's too damn bad. So, all right. We have limited time. So let's get into it. Snoot or boot, and anybody feel free to go first. Pet birthday parties.
Boot.
I'm going to go with snoot. And I used to be a boot, but now I'm a snoot.
Chris, Brandon?
Definitely boot.
I'm going to boot it.
A lot of boots.
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to giving my pets presents, but I don't need to do the party.
Exactly.
And I feel like they're so popular. I am also a boot because I just don't feel like it. But I feel like it was so popular in vet school.
Yeah.
It was. See, hear me out. I look at it as an opportunity to gather and an excuse to have a round of drinks or whatever. So it's just like another excuse to get together and drink. Like, why not celebrate another pet birthday?
Absolutely fair.
To be fair, to be honest, I haven't actually done a pet birthday party for my own pets, but I did go to some in vet school, and I thought they were fun. So,
but you did give your new cat a cupcake recently.
That was actually Willie. He got the new cat cupcake for his first gotcha anniversary. He went to a doggy bakery and specifically asked if there were any cat-friendly treats at the bakery, and they only had one cupcake that was cat-friendly. So, and he devoured it. He loved it. Technically, that wasn't an actual birthday party. It was just Willie with the two cats giving them a cupcake. But
fair.
I mean, that makes sense to me. Like, that's totally acceptable. I would do that.
That's fair. That's fair. Let's hit some more of these. Putting up the Christmas tree on November 1st.
Snoot.
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 Poor Turkey Day. Just overlooked.
Thanksgiving is just first Christmas.
I think we did it the week before Thanksgiving, but it was, a half snoot boot. I don't know.
Half Snoot boot. Brandon?
A boot.
Okay. Next snoot or boot. Purchasing or adopting a doodle dog of any variety. So having a doodle dog.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna go snoot here. If it depending on the dog. I mean, it depends on the individual dog. I'm not gonna be breedist, which it's hard. It's hard with doodles, but I've met some good doodles. I've met some sweet doodles. So I'm gonna go with it depends on the dog. So a soft snoot, I guess.
Overall snoot.
Overall snoot. For me, this is Jeff. I'm gonna say boot, but because I know that a lot of them can come with health issues that I'm not interested in. Although full disclosure, my boyfriend is interested in a Bernedoodle, so I think someday I might be in danger.
You might be a Bernedoodle dad in the future. Is that a possibility?
Stepdad.
Stepdad.
I'm gonna boot as well because I feel like I see them every week.
Yeah, they come to the clinic too much, but I will say they do mostly have great personalities.
That is true. Every of the ones I've met is nice.
Super sweet.
I'm gonna agree. I'm gonna go with I don't know. I'm like half snoot, half boot. Like I would adopt one if the right one comes along the way, but I would never actually spend money on one. And I agree with Brandon in like terms of like all the bad diseases that they get, because in my humble opinion, I feel like they get the worst ear infections, and I would really hate to deal with those. And this is coming from a dermatology person.
Yeah, absolutely fair. All right, let's see if we can do one or two more. Snoot or boot, pets and strollers.
I mean, I would snoot if it was a cat in a stroller. If it was a dog, then boot.
All right. I'm going to surprise you guys. I'm a snoot for this one.
What?
Yes.
Because I've seen a couple of dogs, especially we have a good rehab service at Iowa State. There's a couple of dogs that just can't walk anymore and they want to get out. And they're in the strollers and they're just like, hell yeah, this is great. So for a pretentious dog that just doesn't want to touch the ground because it doesn't want to touch the ground, I'm a boot. But as far as strollers in general, there's a time and a place. So snoot.
I buy that. I think for me it is a general boot, but I appreciate obviously from a medical perspective. Yeah, makes sense in some scenarios.
I'm with Brandon.
Yeah, I was going to say I kind of agree with Brandon too. There was one time where a woman who was a very, very nice client of mine brought in one of her dogs in a stroller, and she had me push the dog to the back in the stroller, and she may or may not have taken pictures and plastered them all over her Facebook page. Aww. So those may be floating out there in space of me pushing the dog in a stroller in my white coat.
Adorbs.
But yeah, and it is cute. It is cute. So I'll go with snoot.
And I also think like if it's otherwise healthy, it needs to walk.
Time and the place, I guess. Yes.
Fair enough. But all your opinions are valid. So thank you for playing Snoot or Boot. There were more on the list, so maybe one day we'll have to play again. But let's switch gears and talk a little bit more about Dr. Andrea Hernández and a little bit of her history. So, Andrea, first of all, thank you again for being here. So pumped. And I just want to start off with the age-old question that we ask all of our guests. What got you interested in veterinary medicine?
Oh, boy. I feel like this is a very deep question. But probably, of course, I can't not say that it started, of course, because I love animals. But I guess a little bit of background, me growing up, I was exposed to multiple animals. Like one of my grandparents, he had like horses and chickens and things like that. My grandma from my other side of the family, she used to rescue dogs, and she always had like multiple dogs in her house almost all the time whenever I remember. So I was exposed to that environment from a very young age, and I grew very fond of just being like around animals. And then as I kept growing up, obviously like I liked science, of course, so I love the medicine part of everything. So I feel like if I love animals and medicine, then veterinarian is the best bet. So also humans are gross.
Yeah, this is Jeff again. I think that's extremely fair. And then as you kind of moved your way from high school, college, kind of getting to vet school, tell us a little bit about your journey as far as getting into vet school and what interest did you have. If I remember correctly, you were a little bit interested in horses. Did that come from a little bit of the farm animals you used to work with? Or how did you get interested ultimately in dermatology?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So honestly, my journey through undergrad, it was a little bit conflicted because at one point, I was I wasn't sure if I wanted to definitely leave Puerto Rico because in Puerto Rico we don't have a veterinary school, so by default I had to leave the island to pursue a career in veterinary medicine. So during one time, I toyed around with the idea of potentially becoming a human doctor, actually even a human dermatologist. But it wasn't until I remember I took a medical mycology class in undergrad as part of my curriculum, and I was legitimately so grossed out by the pictures that the professor would show us of people with athlete's foot and horrendous fungal diseases that I was like, I can't stand watching at pictures of this, let alone imagine like seeing this in person. But it wasn't until the professor actually started talking about ringworm and showing pictures of dogs and cats with ringworm. And I was like, I can actually do this. Like, I can definitely tolerate this a lot better. So I was like, okay, I'm definitely going to do vet med. And then that's when I started volunteering at a vet clinic. I worked with a small animal veterinarian, a local vet back at home, for about a couple of years. I also did some volunteer work at a local racehorse track back in Puerto Rico. And throughout vet school, I wasn't really sure. Like everybody, we always like our interests come and go, or we're like interested in things first and then other things come around. And that's where the large animal part came in, where during externships, I did do like equine internal medicine externships. I also worked with a mixed animal vet in Puerto Rico during vet school, and I really loved working in dairy farms. That was probably one of the highlights of vet school. But then I realized, like, basically I didn't visualize myself doing that my entire life, which that's totally fine. And it wasn't until fourth year of vet school and clinics where I rotated through the primary care service, and we had Dr. Tamisha Hubbard, who is awesome. She's the dermatologist at Tuskegee. And basically, I feel like she played a key in my decision in becoming a dermatologist because she made me fall in love with dermatology. The way that she taught us, and she was so passionate about doing rounds and going over the different conditions and all those things and the workups, that I genuinely fell in love with the specialty. And the good thing about it is that you don't have to strictly stay in small animal. You could do large animal as well with this specialty. So that's why I decided to pursue dermatology.
Yeah, no, I think that's an excellent answer. And I don't know if I mentioned way back when we first did our episodes on our own journeys, like Dr. Tamisha Hubbard, shout out to her because she was also a huge part in getting me into dermatology and literally physically put me in front of my mentor when I visited NAVDF, our National Derm Conference, and was like, you need to meet this person. And then that was Joya Griffin, who became my specialty internship mentor and then my mentor for all our residency. So extremely influential over here too. And then another thing you mentioned was how of course, you came from the gorgeous island of Puerto Rico and you don't have a vet school there. So what was it like deciding to leave the island and do vet school on the mainland? Was that challenging? What was that decision like? It's kind of something that we asked Willie a little bit about. So if you haven't already, listeners, go back and listen to Dr. Willie Bedeau's episode, Dr. Andrea Hernandez's husband. But we want to get your perspective too.
Honestly, very honestly, it was a tough decision, to be quite frank. I'm very close to my family, and basically Puerto Rico is all that I knew, pretty much. Like, yes, I had visited the U.S. before, but it was like short term, like vacations and things like that. Like, I had never lived anywhere outside of Puerto Rico, so it was all that I knew. So it was definitely very tough deciding to like leave your family and live basically overseas, because I can't like drive home or to go back to my home state whenever I want. Like, I have to hop on a plane and go back home. And it was tough. Definitely it entailed making some sacrifices. So, and I'm sure all Puerto Ricans that are listening to this episode, they can relate in some way or another that you basically miss out on a lot of things, like family members, like growing up, like if you have younger cousins, or basically different life stages of your closest friends, like them getting married or having kids, and then you're basically long distance. So it was tough, but it's definitely worth it in the end, because it was my passion. It was the career that I wanted to pursue, and I honestly have no regrets. But in originally it was a tough decision to make, deciding whether I wanted to leave or stay.
Sure. And this is Jeff again. I think that's really a powerful perspective to have, because we kind of take for granted over here on the mainland. Like, I drove from Atlanta, was like maybe 2 hours away from Auburn and Tuskegee, like where we were living. And I think, yeah, all of us on the pod were some sort of driving distance. Adam, you had the furthest. But it definitely is a little bit easier and cheaper than hopping on a plane every time you're trying to go back home. So I did want to switch gears now. We'll switch into some roundtable topics. So roundtable, if it's your first time here listening, is where we ask our guests different questions, more potpourri style, and we kind of open it up on the floor. So any of the hosts can ask a question, and whoever wants to start asking Andrea questions, feel free.
This is Adam. So kind of sticking with Jeff's last question about leaving Puerto Rico to come to the mainland to go to vet school. When we were talking to Willie, I know he was talking a little bit about how they are in the process of trying to get an accredited veterinary school in Puerto Rico, which I think is amazing. It's awesome. So looking back on your experience, if there had been a vet school in Puerto Rico, do you feel like you would have really pushed to try to go to that school, or did you kind of take going to the mainland to go to school as an added opportunity for you to expand your horizon?
Ooh, that is a very good question. And like, it puts a lot of things into perspective. I'm going to be very honest. So if you would have asked Andrea 10 plus years ago, oh my gosh.
Wow.
10 plus, oh my God. Yeah. 10 plus years ago, back in 2013, 2012, 2012, because that's when I started applying to vet school. If you would have asked me then, based on the circumstances of my life back there, I probably would have gone with the option of staying in Puerto Rico and going to the vet school there. But honestly, I also think it's very exciting that they have a vet school now. And now that I am I'm a professional, I'm a veterinarian, and I am in the process of becoming a specialist, I find it as a great opportunity to give back, because they are in the process of looking for staff, like clinical staff, professors, people to teach. And I think that would be a really great opportunity for me to give back some way, especially to future vet students down there. And lets me channel in my future Dr. Tamisha Hubbard, because that's how I met her. She was one of our clinicians and she taught us a dermatology course. So I definitely have big shoes to fill in. But yeah, that's definitely, if I would have had the opportunity to stay at home, I probably would. But looking back retrospectively, now if you ask me, oh, would have you gone back? Honestly, with all the opportunities that I've had and all the experiences I've had, I wouldn't really change anything, because I've had a lot of, it sounds cliche, but I've had a lot of experiences, met so many great people along the way that I wouldn't really change a thing.
Yeah, and I feel like that makes a lot of sense, kind of looking at it from two different perspectives like that. And I really love what you said about how, you have that opportunity now to take that experience that you had and then in turn flip that and give back to the people on the island. That's awesome.
So, Andrea, with being a dermatologist, what is your favorite condition to treat in the dermatology world?
That is a tough question to narrow it down to. Probably what first comes to mind, because as you all probably know, derm is pretty complicated. We treat a lot of conditions that we don't really quote unquote cure. But I would have to say one of my favorite conditions to manage would be sebaceous adenitis, because
Ooh.
it's honestly, it's, to me, it's mind blowing how much basically the sebum, or sebum for those that don't know that are listening, sebum is the natural oils that the sebaceous glands, or the glands in the skin, produce. And it is fascinating to me that with that being absent, how many things can go wrong. So they have a very important job. And it's not just keeping like the skin moist, I guess. That sounds like a terrible word, but um, basically it plays a really important role. It helps store the skin barrier integrity, and helps prevent infections. And honestly, the drastic improvement that I see with just that initial management, it's one of my favorite things, because the dog comes in, and when they have sebaceous adenitis, for those of you that, I should back up, for those of you that don't know what sebaceous adenitis is, it's basically a autoimmune disease, or an inflammatory disease, that where the immune system targets the sebaceous glands in the body, or in the skin, I should say. And once those sebaceous glands are compromised, the skin does not produce the natural oils that it has, and the skin becomes extremely dry. The coat becomes very dry and brittle. The pet, as a consequence, becomes itchy. They can get secondary infections because their skin barrier is compromised. So we usually tend to see it. One of the most common breeds that we tend to see it is poodles, and they're poodle crosses, like doodles. And one of the first things that they mention is the coat changes, like how their coat, when it went from curly to straight and dry and brittle. And just by managing that and addressing that, the changes can be very drastic. The pet feels much better. Their coat starts to improve. So it's honestly one of my favorite conditions to treat, just because of that, because you can actually see the improvement at home.
No, that's awesome. I was not expecting that answer. So it's pretty cool.
This is Brandon. Outside of derm, if you had to like pick a lane that you had to go down outside of derm, what would that have been? And then like, are there things that you're trying to do in the realm of dermatology that are kind of like pushing the boundaries of the dermatology world?
That is a very good question. So it's interesting that you asked that, because I did consider at several points throughout my career a different path, just because if you pay attention to my bio, it did take me a while for me to actually get to a residency. And the reason why it's because I didn't match for 3 years, actually. And I actually got my residency program, my current past, the program that I trained in, I got that outside of the match. And I did consider changing specialties, and one of them was actually shelter medicine, because we do still see quite a lot of derm problems in shelter med. It's one of the common things that you tend to see at a shelter. And from my background, which I know that Dr. Willie Vidal, my husband, he touched on this. Back at home, we have a really, really big stray animal population, and it's a big problem. And that was something that I was heavily considering going the shelter medicine route, just because I had that interest and that thing in my background. And as for the second question, how can I push the boundaries on dermatology? So I feel like dermatology is evolving quite a lot. Jeff, I don't know if you feel the same way. It constantly is evolving. They're having all these products, all these things, and it's also growing very fast. It's becoming more and more popular and more, I guess, familiarized, if that's the right word to put it. I'm failing to like describe it, but I guess there's more awareness, because a lot of clients are not aware that there is a veterinary dermatologist. And especially in my background, that I come from a Latin American country, it's something honestly that's not really heard of. So I would like to push boundaries in that world, especially in the Latin American world, and do CEs, do more educational content on my social media, and basically try to reach out to those communities, especially those back at home, where there's really no knowledge that there's a veterinary dermatologist. So, or there's such a thing as a veterinary dermatologist, I should say.
I like that. I like that you brought up the like the fact that you went outside of the match. I did too for my residency. I think it's important for like future interns and residents to realize there are other pathways outside of the traditional match pathway.
Yeah, I agree.
This is Jeff again. I feel like there's so much room for us to grow in different lanes that we can take in derm, especially I know you're passionate about, and I'm also passionate about getting more into speaking and sharing that education. So as we grow and become more popular as a specialty, we can also share that with our colleagues who have not had as much derm in veterinary school. Like we didn't have a whole lot, even though what we got was great with Dr. Hubbard. I wish I had weeks and weeks of it rather than so little. But I did want to ask you one more question directed towards you, and then I'll ask more of a wrap-up question to the group. So more in the language side of things, there are not a lot of veterinarians who are multilingual, at least in the US and in Canada. So that makes you special. So how has speaking Spanish and being bilingual impacted your career?
It's impacted my career in more than one way. The more obvious one is in the clinical aspect or the clinical setting. I have the advantage that I can speak to Spanish speaking only clients, which in many areas of the country, there's a higher percentage of the population that speaks Spanish in cities like in Florida, like in Miami, for example, California, Texas. So it's definitely a good asset to have. And for me, it's an honor that I can serve that part of the community as well, that I feel like some people that they feel not marginalized, but I guess like they can't really like they don't have access to care because they just don't understand it. Like some of them, they use their children as their translators, and it's very hard to have like a conversation of like atopy or an autoimmune disease and your translator is a 10-year-old 8-year-old kid. But that's the reality of a lot of families here in the United States. So for me, it's an honor and a privilege that I'm able to serve those communities as well. And the other way that it has impacted me, it's through social media, through my page, because I do share educational content. Mostly it's in English because I do have a international following recently, but I do have a lot of followers from Latin America and a lot of students, undergrad students from back at home. And I want to be basically an example or an inspiration to them that this is something that you can achieve. And I think that representation like this definitely matters, because me, when I first started out, I didn't have somebody like at least in dermatology that it was from my background that I could look up to. Now I have learned and met more people, but at least back in the day, in Puerto Rico, we don't have a dermatologist, so I didn't know that it was such a thing. So I definitely look forward to being that person for people back at home.
Yeah, this is Jeff again. And I think that's awesome because you just, by being yourself and the experiences you've been through, are able to open up access to dermatology at a specialty level when it's not available to a lot of people, which I think is amazing. And this is also special to my heart because, I've been learning Spanish, and a really brief experience I had, I don't think I've shared on here before, but I've told you about it. It was at NAVDF, our last national conference. When I've shared a little bit of Spanish online as I was learning it, and actually made a virtual friend on Instagram from Ecuador, I believe. And I think it was Veronica. And
Oh yeah, Veronica.
Yeah, I got to meet her in person, and we had a whole Spanish conversation at our conference. And she actually brought you to like some chocolates from her country, which were amazing. If you're listening to this, Veronica, shout out to you. We love you. Te amo. But just doing that and just learning something new, something that anybody technically could do, kind of just like opened up new connections for me that I didn't even expect. And I was sweating bullets when I was talking. Don't get me wrong. Like I still have a lot to learn, and I'm still stressed out sometimes, but it was cool to kind of see, I've been working at it a long time, and take a dip my toe into your world and see like, what is it like over there? Okay, I like it. This is cute. And like make other friends, but really expand your network in ways that I really never expected.
Yeah, that's awesome. And one other thing that I feel like it's been not a game changer, but it's been a highlight, I should say. It's been a highlight in my career so far. It was being able to do an externship in Mexico with dermatologists in Mexico. And I feel like if I didn't know Spanish, like if I didn't speak Spanish, it probably wouldn't have been the same experience. And it was amazing because it was great to see my specialty in a Latin American country, see how clients interact with a dermatologist in a country like Mexico, and also the different things that they do. They have so many cool different like treatments and stuff that they do over there that is different from the US, and it was great to learn from them. And I highly recommend to whoever's listening, if you ever have an opportunity to do some type of externship or rotation in overseas or internationally in a place that you would feel comfortable going to, I highly recommend it because it's a really great experience. And also shout out to Dr. Galia Scheinberg and Alberto Cordero, who were the two vets that hosted me in Mexico. They're amazing.
Absolutely outstanding, and totally agree. And again, shout out to Dr. Scheinberg over in Mexico City. Because of you, Andrea, you inspired me to go do that externship. Otherwise, I don't think I would have had the confidence to push my Spanish limits. But it was absolutely worth it. Now, question to the group to kind of end things out. So this episode is going to air in 2024. We're here recording at the end of 2023. So I wanted to ask each of you, what is one thing you're excited to accomplish in the new year?
Okay, I'll go first. So one thing that I'm looking forward to is dipping my toes into the CE world and speaking world. And I actually have my first opportunity in April. Yes, in April, where I'm going to do an online CE course for Vet Med Association in Mexico. So I'm very excited. And I feel like that's like my window and my my gateway to that world. So I'm very excited and looking forward to doing that.
And this is Jeff, and I will have to quasi copy your answer because you said the exact same thing I was going to say. Now that residency's over, I can't say much, but I have a speaking opportunity, a new thing that came up this week that I'll be doing next year that I'm very excited about. Because I think it'll technically be like my first speaking gig, like first official, like you're going to speak and be involved in some CE. So I'm really excited about that.
This is Brandon. This is easy for me. I'm ready to be done with residency.
I know that's right.
There you go.
Hell yeah.
That's right.
I am done with this shit. I'm ready to be done. Like test passed, failed, doesn't matter. I'm gonna be done. And then no offense to people that live in Iowa, but this place sucks. And I'm ready to leave.
I wasn't ready.
It sucks. It sucks so bad. I can't wait to be back in Colorado. Yeah. No holding back there. I'm so ready to be done.
Fair.
We're rooting for you. You got this.
You got
Hang in
this.
there.
Thanks, guys.
Chris, Adam?
This is Adam. So for me, I would say, obviously, we know that I do relief work. And I was counting up the other day. I think this was my first full year doing relief. And I had the opportunity to work at 8 or 9 different clinics, which again, it's really cool because you get to see different experiences in terms of how different clinics practice and their different protocols and how they do things. And so I've learned a lot that way. So I'm just looking forward to the opportunity to branch out and work with more clinics next year and hopefully meet some new people and learn some more things.
So I guess this leaves me to go. I'm just trying to get through the holidays right now. I haven't even thought that far ahead. I'll be honest. I don't know. But I mean,
this is the most honest answer of all, second to Brandon's answer.
We're 3 weeks from Christmas, and I'm trying to figure out just how to get through Christmas and New Year's. I mean, I guess something cool again for next year in 2024. Brandon, as he was speaking about Colorado, I was just in Colorado last week.
Oh, yeah.
For some fracture repair CE, and that was awesome. So we're kind of looking forward to just getting more experience with that. And I think that's honestly the goal, is just to get more and more experience in surgery and doing what I like to do. So I guess that's my 2024 goal.
And, all of those were absolutely phenomenal goals, especially yours, Chris. So thank you so much, Dr. Andrea Hernandez, for being here with us. Is there anywhere where our listeners can find you?
Yes, they can find me on Instagram. My username is AHB_dermavet. That's AHB_dermavet.
Perfect. And we will make sure to put that in the show notes. Gracias por estar aquí con nosotros. And to our listeners, thank you so much for listening to the Dr. Bros. If you enjoyed it, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or anywhere you listen to podcasts. We will love you forever. It would also help us out if you could share this episode with others who are interested in today's topic. You can also tell us what you want to hear. You can drop suggestions in the comments or shoot us an email at thedoctorbros@gmail.com or DM us at thedoctorbros, and that's spelled THEDOGTORBROS on Instagram. You can reach me at DermDrJeff on Instagram, spelled DermDogtor JEFF, and that's on Instagram or TikTok.
And this is Brandon. You can reach me at Dr. Mason IM on Instagram.
And this is Chris. You can reach me on Instagram at dr.chrishernandez on Instagram as well.
And this is Adam, and you can reach me on Instagram at DrAdamDVM. That's DrAdamDVM.